Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com. Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient.
I just screwed up the ads right there. It's all good. We were just watching our very creative ad from our friends at the Iowa State University Foundation. If you're watching on the stream, I screwed that up. I apologize. Very touchy studio here, and we played the Terraplex Act twice. I apologize. How are you today, Blum? It's been a week.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm more concerned about you, but no, real quick, that foundation ad.
That was a very good ad. We will
It's
play
a great
it
ad,
in its
but you need
entirety
to
at the end of the show. I promise.
You need to watch it on YouTube.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of visuals there.
So that's an interesting part of this show is that there's just so many more people who just podcast worldwide are taking in podcasts via YouTube. So here we are. It's cut down on our Sunday night Cody Road consumption.
It has,
which might be
we're virtual, which is good for the old LBs.
I do think that once the season gets going, we'll probably be live like more often than not in my little studio. But I don't have that, so I apologize today. I'm outside because my basement is still just a disaster. And my wife has worked all weekend, so it's me and the kids, and it's like dad's gone crazy time. And I'm sitting outside, so you're probably going to hear like birds chirping or hopefully not too much wind picking up. But I apologize. I'm hoping to be back into my office by the 4th of July. Will be my goal at this point.
Well, I think everyone wants to know how you doing, pal. I know a long week for you, obviously the flood. You went on a little vacation, but the big guy Dierks, I know people saw on. I know it's been a long couple of years for you guys, but as they say, cross the rainbow bridge this week, and how's everything going? Doesn't feel the same in the podcast without the big guy humping my leg.
He's a staple. He's been a part of this podcast more times than not. I mean, you think about as many shows as we've done in my office, he's been there for probably 95% of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's
usually eating something
or
grabbing my shoe or unplugging something.
Yeah.
Right.
He's unplugged us a few times. I miss him a lot, man. It's been a really, really quiet weekend around here. The good part of this, if there's any good part, is like he never got to the point where, he couldn't walk or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was. I won't get into everything, but a good. So we were talking about our friends at the foundation, and I always give every year to veterinary medicine, and this would be a good opportunity for me to give a shout out to not only the vets there, who do an amazing job, but there's students that are going through that. My wife did that process where they are, it's a teaching hospital there.
It is.
But they extended his life by at least a year at the Lloyd Veterinary Hospital out there in Ames, and it's really an amazing place. I never thought I would be the guy who would put your dog on, like chemo drugs and stuff, and we didn't have to do a lot of that, but like he was taking some pills that staved off a little. But it really an incredible experience out there. So when I do Forever True Day and all that stuff, I always make sure and give a little bit to the veterinary medicine. So I appreciate you bringing it up. It's been a week. I wasn't expecting it to come this week. It came on really fast, and I didn't even think about it. This is our first pod without him. He was kind of like He was like our producer there in the early years.
He was. I mean, it would always be okay. Walking in the Williams house, and then Dirks would steal your shoe, and then he'd give you some loving, but then he would just chill and listen. And I was like, buddy, you
Yeah.
probably don't care about media rights and streaming and NIL, but he always was there to listen. And I think I just want to say this real quick. I think it was your dad who commented on because you put a great video out on. I think it was on Friday, and your dad was kind of my thoughts too of like he was never angry. He was just a happy
Oh
guy.
yeah.
I always called him, and I mean this respectfully, C-Dub. He was a big dummy,
He
but
was.
he was a big lovable dummy because he never had a bad day. He just always liked being around you. He'd give you some loving. He'd hump you a little bit. He'd steal your shoe, but then he'd just then he would lay his head on your lap. And it was like,
He
man,
was.
Dirks is my guy. He was everybody's guy.
He was a
So we'll miss him.
lovable jock.
He
Be
was.
yeah, like he. It's funny. I'll tell the story about how we got him. So Paisley had died, our first dog, and it was very sudden. She died at the age of 2.
Don't remember that.
And I wrote a column about her in the Des Moines Register, and this woman out in Nebraska breeds golden retrievers, but she breeds show dogs. So like they're like award-winning goldens is what this woman's doing.
Yep.
And Dierks was born I don't know, lack of a better term. I'm sure we have a lot of vets who listen to this or Iowa State fans. But like one of his testicles was like up into his stomach. He literally had like one testicle, so he couldn't win any awards because
That's discrimination.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
If you have one nut, then you have one nut.
But like that was the only thing, quote unquote, wrong
with it.
this dog, and she read my column and donated him to us. She's like, hey, like I'm breeding these show dogs and I can't use him. I would instead of just like, she's like, I don't need pets. I'd love for him to go to a good family. Would you guys want him? And that was how that was. So like it's funny you said that, like, because we always joked he was all brawn and no brains, but
Yeah.
because he was a good looking boy, man.
He
Like,
was. He was a good looking pup. And he would take dumps in my yard, and so my yard's thankful, I guess.
He's taken more dumps in your yard than any other yard in Bondurant.
But
Man,
just
it's the one thing I could train him to do over the years.
just to go take a bloop in the take a dump in the Blum yard. But I will say this, and this is what I was thinking about this week, as it relates to Iowa State, is every time Iowa State had a big win, we'd come over back to your basement and we'd watch the game. So
Yeah,
I was the
we've done that a
Oklahoma
lot of
game
years.
in 17, the Kansas game when Donovan Jackson hit the Moneyball dagger in the corner, the big marbles dagger. Even we watched the Iowa State Baylor game during COVID, the women's game. Iowa State hadn't won there in so long, and
Yeah,
there was Dierks. Just a lot of times he was, he's getting hair on you, or he's humping your leg, but he was always there with a happy smile on his face. So
Yep.
it's just interesting how dogs leave an impression that you didn't even realize was there, even for he wasn't my dog, but he felt like he was my dog too.
No, I appreciate you saying that, and he kind of was. I mean, I feel the same way about Zoe. I don't know if Frank is as well yet, but I'm sure we'll get to that point. But that's the thing too with the way we. It's kind of a blessing and a curse because I take him everywhere.
You do, yep.
He goes on vacations. He
Tailgates.
He's at the tailgate. He's out at the RV lot, just sitting there by the camper. I mean, the amount of like little kids that know to come to our camper because Dierks is going to be there. And then like I was joking with some people that he's whenever the weather permits. So like it's pretty good in like the winter months where he just will sit in my truck during like press conferences. Like it's just he just goes everywhere. So it's just it's really really quiet. But no, I appreciate it, and
yeah. Well,
I really talked about it much this weekend, so it's good to honor him because you're right. He was like our third leg here for the longest time.
Well, I was at a thing this weekend. They're like, "Man, how's we're gonna miss Dierks too because we listened to him on the podcast." I was like, "No, I appreciate that. I mean, there's some truth to it, but seriously, everyone's thinking about you, pal, and I know I know for sure that it's not just a dog, and so that's where
Well,
we're all behind you. I think that's the great part, and this is what I love about Cyclone Fanatic, but just Iowa State fans in general is people feel like they're our family, and Dierks was a part of the family, and so we're gonna miss him.
yeah, and the whole just a dog thing. It's like if I would guess this would be a thing about you. This is the longest foundation read ever, but good for them because I'm still
Great.
crediting our
You're a
friends at
grateful
Vet Med.
patient. Grateful patient.
You probably wouldn't have been like a dog guy 10 years ago, but
Nope.
your wife very much has kind of made you one. It
It's a
feels
fact.
like in
It's a
a
fact.
great way. It's
Yeah.
in a really good way, and it's like some people I get it. Like if you're not in that fraternity, you're like, oh, what are these guys? So
That was
it's just
me.
a
That was me
dog.
12 years ago. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, whatever.
yeah. And I always had like a family dog growing up, but it wasn't like this. Like we didn't take it everywhere. Like little league games, like Dierks is just
He was
like
there.
a fixture.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah. Well, while thinking about you,
A lot
keep
of
fighting the
great
good
text
fight.
messages. My buddy Chris Clover at Mechdyne, I want to thank them. They're our presenting sponsor. He sent me a nice message earlier today. I got one from our buddy Jeff Kelderman as well, at Kelderman Manufacturing. So it's a
It's a family business, right?
cool little family we got going on here. Not a ton to get to today, but some, I would say, more fun stuff.
Yes.
We're not really going to do anything on trials or media
Thank,
rights or
thank you. Right.
any of
I
that
need a
crap.
break.
We have real kick times to get to. Some interesting ratings for newcomers on Iowa State's offense from Pro Football Focus, and I'm going to lean on you to tell me how seriously we should take these. I know these are two good players. Let's just start here.
Okay. I love it.
Jalen Travis and Eli Green. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I've been kind of out this week, but I did do my prep coming into this. They are the number one wide receiver and offensive lineman via Pro Football Focus going into the 2024 season in the Big 12. That's accurate,
fact.
right?
That's their data.
So I think a lot of people, let's put ourselves in the listeners as they're driving to work on a Monday morning. What does that mean? Like how can you rate that of guys who have been at Princeton and North Dakota State for the last few years? What does that mean, Blum? How seriously should we take this?
And that's what's hard to know for sure, but I think people, you got to remove yourself from, oh, it was just North Dakota State and it was just Princeton, to what Pro Football Focus does, and it's not perfect, but they analyze every single snap based on film and data. And so it's not just like, oh, you look good to me. It's no, you have this much of separation, you're having this many pancakes, you're having this much of run grade, pass grade. And Jalen Travis and Eli Green, so Jalen's 6'9", 340 pounds. And I got a picture of him this weekend because he's on campus this weekend for the first time. So he made it, by the way. Kudos.
That's a big win. Good
Jalen
job.
is here.
Good job, Blum.
Yep.
Congratulations.
He and Matt Campbell's a big guy. Matt's not a small. Matt played defensive line. He towers over Campbell. Like Jalen Travis is a massive, massive individual. And he does not look 340 pounds. I say that in the greatest way possible. Like the guy appears to be, a power forward that could just, run over somebody. But he looks the part. The question for him and why he's in the Big 12 to begin with is he's an NFL player. There's no question in my mind. He hasn't done it yet against high-level competition. So Iowa State got him from the monsters. Everybody wanted Jalen Travis. Just look at his physical profile. But Iowa State got him because he's from Minneapolis. He trusted the staff, and he knows he can prove it here. I don't know if it's a guarantee he's going to start, but I'm going to put it out there. I think he'll be a starter. And so when
he was one that they recruited out of high school too, right?
He was. Yep.
Okay.
So his brother, this is a small world. His brother played for Stanford basketball, and he was a big prospect in the Hoiberg era that Iowa State finished second to Stanford. But family is awesome, and Jalen and his brother, who is Reed, both went to Stanford and then ended up at Kentucky, and Jalen went to Princeton because they're like high end, super IQ. They wanted the degree first and foremost. I mean, I think Jalen Travis is going to be a president someday. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So He gets it, but he's going to be really good. He's an NFL player, and I think he steps right into a tackle spot somewhere for Iowa State. Is he the best tackle in the conference? That's a hard thing to say because he hasn't done it yet. But I think from his grade from Princeton, I think it translates pretty safely. I really do. And so everyone talks about Iowa State's offensive line and goes, well, how good are they going to be? You're talking about an instant tackle starter, which is the hardest position to find in college football right off the bat, who Iowa State got from some monster schools. And he's on campus now, and get ready because he's just going to add to the offense on the offensive line. And I think that has flown completely under the radar of getting a Jalen Travis because he's not a quarterback, he's not whatever.
I would agree.
But he addresses a monster need, and I'm telling you guys, this offense is going to be really good, and Eli Green's a part of it too.
So that's where I was going to go next, and I'll fall on the sword here a little bit. There was a lot going on when he he committed.
He way under the radar.
Yeah, I don't think any of us, ourselves included, probably talked about the Eli Green edition enough when it happened, just because we were so busy with this NIL and this trial and all this like just minutia crap where we don't get to talk about the actual games as much as we want sometimes. But this was a really big deal, but I was surprised when it came out because you look at his stats from North Dakota State and you're like, oh, that's a nice player. I mean, comes from a winning program.
Yep.
He's got connections with a new Iowa State offensive coach, right? Like there's all these things, but I didn't expect him to be that highly rated by PFF. What do they see?
Yeah, and it's a great story of a young guy who wasn't recruited by many coming out of high school. And then even when he got to North Dakota State, didn't play a lot right away. C-Dub, here's the growth he had. He went from 2022, 6 catches, 92 yards, to last year, 46 catches, 900 yards, and an All-American at that level. So the question is, what is that next step for him? And what PFF is grading on is not about your size, your speed, your whatever. It's all analytics based on what you did on the field.
Yeah, and they're looking see how much separation you get from the corner. Like it's not
separation from the corner, catch percentage, what's your get off from, and it's all data. And if you look at Eli and you stand next to him, you go, well, that's a Big 12 receiver. It's like you probably wouldn't think about it because he doesn't have the, the Benny Nagoye or the Jaden Higgins body. We're like, oh my gosh. But this
he's
guy
more like Noel.
He is. He's 5'11", 185. And here's what I know. When he committed to Iowa State, the staff basically had a celebration of like, oh my gosh, we think we just stole one here.
Yeah.
Because he had the opportunity to go to some big schools, but because of the North Dakota State connection with both Pauly, but then also the new running backs coach who was his coordinator at North Dakota State, he was comfortable here. And he's Jalen Noel 2.0. I mean, this is what you're looking at. But his analytics were even better than Noel's was last year at Iowa State. Now, does it translate perfectly? It does not. But we all know how good North Dakota State is. And they can play with about anybody. And he was putting up those numbers against really good programs. It will translate absolutely. And I think Eli Green is a surefire impact guy for Iowa State this year. And you get him for another year after that as well. So this is one of those guys where you don't talk about him because he doesn't have that huge name. He doesn't have big size. But I'll just tell you guys, the staff thinks he's a future NFL guy, and he'll be one of the best offensive players right off the bat.
Well, and this staff has a great track record of finding these kind of diamond in the rough wide receivers, right? We saw him do it with Hutchinson, who's an NFL guy.
Yep.
Jaden Higgins, we saw
He's
him
gonna
do
be
it
one.
there.
Yep.
And now, I don't know if this Green will turn into that, but they certainly think that he has the opportunity to.
And they can help punt and kick returns as well. And you throw now. This is the great part. Okay, you've now given Rocco Beck to tackle. Okay, you've got Abu Sama coming back for another year. Carson Hansen for another year. Dylan Lee's who's going to play as a freshman at a running back spot. But then you give him Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Eli Green, Ben Bramer, Daniel Jackson's back for another year. Benny Nagoye. I don't want to get over my skis here, but I think this Iowa State offensive repertoire is as good as it's been. Because even and I go, you're what about Brock Purdy and Breece Hall? Look at their weapons. You know, it was Charlie Kohler, it was Chase Allen, and it was X.
Yeah.
But who else was there, right? Like I think this group from an outside perspective is really going to be able to throw the ball downfield, and you've got a young offensive coordinator that wants to do exactly that. Nothing against Manning. Manning loved the tight ends.
Well, I love Mauser. Everybody knows that I'm a Mauser guy. Like I was all about the promotion. I'm excited about this.
Yes.
I don't know if he's screwing with me or what, but I don't think they're going to be afraid to throw.
They're not.
Because last year, even like and Shieldhouse is great, right? We all knew Shieldhouse was great. But remember like the week going into that Texas game where I was already pissed because I knew they were going to try and run the ball again. I was already mad before the game because I'm like, they're going to try and fucking run the ball. Pardon my French. Shouldn't. And they average like 0.9 yards per kick. Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of feel like Mouse is going to just like, we'll throw it 50 times tonight if we have to. And then, when the matchup dictates it with BYU, you're going to run the hell all over them. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying I think Mouse is like better than Nate Shieldhouse because that's an absurd thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
He hasn't called a game yet, but I know him well enough where I don't think he's very stubborn. I'll put it that way. I think he'll be aggressive.
Yeah, I would say no stubbornness with Nate, or excuse me, with Mauser. And I think that the other part here is Iowa State legit has outside weapons, and for the longest time Iowa State just didn't. They just had, that's one position. Other than that year with Lazard and Butler, which they were great. You just haven't had a lot on the outside, and I do think you've got. I'm a card-carrying member of the Jalen Knoll fan club. Have been for 4 years now. I think that guy's gonna have a great year.
I was wearing his NIL shirt earlier today.
I'm just a huge fan. And then obviously Higgins is an NFL guy. I think Eli Green's really good. Ben Bramer's a tight end and a wide receiver's body. You've got these, and then Rocco is just not afraid. He's not afraid to throw it downfield. I think that's what we learned last year. Is he wants to throw it down there. There's some guys that are just not built for it. And he is. He wants it. He's aggressive. So it's going to lead to some mistakes. There's no doubt. But I just think this group is going to be really fun. And you don't have to worry about it being, 4 yards up the middle and then thrown to a tight end every other play. They're going to try and stretch it because that's legitimately Iowa State's receiving core, based on Pro Football Focus, is the best in the conference, in the Big 12, and one of the best in the country. We have never been able to say that before.
Hold on to that thought. I do want to thank a couple of sponsors here real quick. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the offense with a question I have that I think I have an answer to, but maybe not. I'm sitting out here on my deck right now. I was just thinking about how good it would be to have an Ames lager, and I don't have one. So go out and pick those up. We still need to be buying the Ames lagers, right, Blum? We still need to be supporting the collective, doing all that good stuff with our friends from Westo.
100%. The beer gets. So I was at a birthday party, a 6-year-old birthday party.
I saw that they were serving the Ames lager,
and my guy Mitch had Ames lager for the parents there, and it was awesome. It was the best birthday party I've been to in a long time. So well done, Mitch. Good. And I saw actually talked to a bunch of folks that listen to the podcast. So it's always fun to go out in the wild and talk to good people like that.
Appreciate that. Speaking of folks who listen to the podcast, we have a new sponsor here on the Williams and Blum podcast, and it's a guy I've known forever. Well, you have too. We've known this guy forever, way from our Welch Avenue drinking days back in the day, from college. Tell us about we're getting into the real estate business. Give us the scoop here, Blum.
That's right. So we've been working on this for about 6 months now, but excited to have Andrew Chaplin from Hunsicker and Associates into the Cyclone Fanatic family. So Andrew is about our age, our era.
Great guy.
So he is also has been for the last 2 years a super supporter of women's basketball, in particular on the We Will Collective side. Goes to season tickets, goes to everything. But Andrew is an awesome dude. You can check out his website. We're going to tell you more about the partnership here going forward. But if you go to andrew.hunsikerrealty.com, you can see some of the houses he has available. But not only is he a good guy, he's a Cyclone. He can represent the entire state. He can help your housing no matter where you go. but he's also going to give back in some manner to something of your preference. So if you want a Cyclone Fanatic premium membership and you work with Andrew, he'll do that. If you want to make a donation to your favorite nonprofit, he's going to do that. And just one of those guys where real estate can be difficult, CW, you know this, but you want somebody you can call, whether it's good or bad
Absolutely.
news, and just be able to talk to and have a beer with. And I would say Chappie's one of the best. So look forward to sharing more about Andrew and excited to have him part of the CF family.
Yeah, it's good too because we like getting our people in on this, right? Because then so I have another example about that. So I got a text from Mark over at Kelderman Manufacturing this week, and somebody, I don't know who, but they went and bought a new camper van at Plaza RV
There you go.
and took it right down to Oskaloosa to Kelderman Manufacturing to get a souped up suspension put on that thing. And it was a listener, somebody put those two together, but this is kind of what we're doing here. And when we have, sorry, huge wind gust just came up. When we have these meetings with potential clients, I mean, that's the type of thing we talk about, is that all of it's kind of, everything just kind of works together, and that was cool. So then you can call our friend Colin Newell for your insurance when
That's
you get
right.
your new house. Boom.
And
Just like that, it all comes together.
And I know you've worked with realtor folks in the past, and you want to make sure it's the right person going forward.
Yes.
And again, Andrew literally was he a bartender at Chasers?
He was
so
like the manager or something there. That's how I got to know him so well, because I was at Chasers all the time during college.
But the great thing about Andrew, anytime I text him, he answers within literally 30 seconds. And if I'm hiring a realtor, that's what I want,
Yeah.
because I don't want to
yeah.
miss out. So, and then we'll talk to Andrew at some point on the podcast. But lifelong
Cool.
Cyclone, grew up in Ames, and you guys are really enjoying him. If you're looking for a realtor, you're our age, and like, hey, Andrew Chaplin. So go to Andrew.HunseckerRealty.com. He's right there in Ames, but again, he can service the whole state. And look forward to telling you more about him.
Last thing, my Farm Bureau experience too with Newell has been nothing but awesome.
How's the basement coming?
It's coming. Longer. Listen, I got pretty lucky because I know a lot of guys in construction, and it was like people wanting to do like side jobs to, you know what I mean, that type of stuff. So I'm gonna be in a much better spot than I thought I would be in a week ago, faster. But they've been awesome. Mark, the adjuster, was great to work with. That's a bad job when you got to go into somebody's. And like mine was nothing. It was water in my basement. Like,
sure,
when you're an adjuster and you got to go to like somebody's house that's been
bad
ripped apart
news
by a tornado or something, it's like the worst moment of their life, and you got to show up there. But he was awesome. Like I've had a really good experience with those guys. So give Colin a shout today. And I actually just got Colin a new lead. He's going to be getting a call here on Monday from another new advertiser. I can't even make it up, I swear. That's coming up. We'll tell you about that.
The family's growing, and you got to love
it is. It is. My last question on the offense.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, go.
Let me ask you this real quick. I want to ask you this because I just pulled it up. Okay, what skill positions would you rather have? Are you ready for this? This is super interesting to me. Okay, we're going 2021. Okay, that was the year, right? That was going to be the year with all the dudes. And again, I'm not disrespecting these guys. I'm leaving it open to your opinion here. Here were the dudes on that 2021 team. Your quarterback, obviously, was Brock Purdy. Okay, much respect. Yep. Your running back was Breece Hall. Much respect. Here are the rest. Xavier Hutchinson, NFL guy. Charlie Kohler, NFL guy. Your third leading receiver that year was Jalen Knowles, a true freshman.
That's crazy to think that Jalen played on that team. Like,
right?
Seems, you know what I mean? Like,
I thought the same thing, but he was third leading receiver that year. Your next leading receiver was Chase Allen, and then your three next wide receivers were Tariq Milton, Darren Wilson, and Sean Shaw. All had under 12 catches during the entire season.
Milton was criminally underused.
But C-Dub, he went to Texas.
They did the damn tight end thing too much.
They did. I agree with that.
Yeah, if you go back to that year,
I agree with that.
I believe, Brent, if you give that team last year's scheme, they might be in the playoff.
Interesting. I think you might be onto something.
I think that they royally screwed that up with they overused the tight ends. They overthought how good their offensive line was, and they didn't let the dogs eat. Okay,
I,
maybe that they're in the playoff. That's probably too much, but they're definitely in a better spot than where they ended up
yeah,
with
I
7 and
think
5 or whatever it
you-
was.
you're right. But then the second part of my brain goes, but hey, Tariq Milton transfers to Texas and doesn't play, and I
True.
understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
Texas was loaded, and on and
Do
on
you
and on.
remember the Tariq Milton hype though?
Oh my gosh, absolutely, I do. Absolutely, and he had a look at Tariq Milton's profile. He had a
So
couple of
maybe
really good years. So
I don't know anything about the guy. Maybe he just plateaued as like a sophomore. Like,
could have
and
been.
we don't know everything, right? Like, and I know that they loved Jalen back then too. So
Yeah,
maybe
right when he
Jalen
came
was
in,
just
he was like, "This guy's pretty good." But
yeah,
now you've got
yeah.
so let's compare that group again. Elite group. I think best offensive talent Iowa State's ever had. That group. So I'm not understating that. But now this group, Rocco Becht. Okay, obviously I'm not comparing him to Brock Purdy, but the comparisons are
But you kind
you
of
know
are.
yeah they're there. Abu Sama,
Speaking of
young.
that, shout out to Anthony Beck getting the Battle Hawks in the playoffs.
I'm thinking about going next Sunday. I really
Really
want to go. I want to go. They play
interesting.
Sunday night at 6 o'clock against
That
the
would be
San.
fun.
I want to go just to show love for my guy Anthony and Rocco.
Anthony's awesome. I'm a
He's the
huge fan
best,
of his.
and
I'm
you
a huge
guys,
fan.
we owe Rocco a lot and the family. But I kind of want to go. But anyway, so Rocco, Abu, and then by the way, some backup running backs as well. And Carson Hansen
I,
and Dylan Lee, and this Jalen Jackson's going to play.
Carson Hansen's the stock of all these guys I would buy right now.
I think yes, I agree.
Still.
And then tight end wise, it's Ben Bramer gets the headlines, but you return C-Dub Steve O'Klotz,
Yeah.
who had a really good year last year, and Tyler Moore and a couple others there. But then on the outside, you've got Jaden Higgins, who I think his upside is better than Xavier Hutchinson. I just do.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Jalen Knoll, who is 3 years older, 30 pounds more than he was in 2021, and he's gotten better. And then Eli Green, who has all sorts of ability for sure. Clearly, he's done it already, and the staff's super high on him. And even a Daniel Jackson is back, plus a Benny Nagoya who has super high upside as well, who they're super pumped up for. So, again, I'm not saying this is better than that group because you had Brees Hall, who was a second-round pick and was going to be the NFL Rookie of the Year until he got hurt, and Brock Purdy. But it's not crazy.
I also think you do have to factor in the league. Like you
That
don't
too?
have trips to Norman, like it. Now, granted, I don't think Iowa State got the easiest schedule, in
Nope.
this new Big 12 by any means, having to go to Utah and you get Kansas State like back-to-back weeks or whatever it is. But I just think like in this iteration of the Big 12, like I would take Campbell and his staff and the continuity of this roster, and I would put it up against anybody in this league. Where back then that stuff didn't matter as much because
You're right.
it was more of like it was just a different era.
Well, you're always going to be behind Oklahoma and Texas. You just were from a
It
talent
was just
perspective.
a different era.
And that's where I think Iowa State's offensive talent is on par with about anybody in the league this year. I do. I think Iowa State will have in its starting depth chart on offense, I think there's 5 or 6 NFL guys. And you just haven't been able to say that. I really do. I mean, go do it for me, Chris. You can find 5 or 6 NFL guys on that list,
Yeah,
right?
I think that you've got a quarterback that will probably be in consideration.
Yep.
You've definitely got at least one running back.
Yep.
You've got the receiver in Higgins, Bramer,
Yep.
obviously.
Yep.
Let's give it to Travis and maybe one other offensive
Jalen
lineman
Knoll. I mean, I think Jalen Knoll can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Even
I
if
mean,
Tyler Miller's 6'8", 330, like he's
that's
gonna
what
get.
I'd say.
Yeah.
I would put the over under on lineman at 1.5.
I think so too.
Because somebody's always going to sneak in there, and and even like the Hester who got hurt last year, they really like. I have no idea. He may step in and just be a dog. Like it.
Yep.
And
then
I
this
agree.
Tyler Morrow's. By the way, here's a little nugget for you. You're on a nugget.
I love nuggets.
Tyler Morrow from I think he's from the Quad Cities area, was hurt has been hurt for a good portion of his Iowa State career. He's going to challenge for a starting job as well.
That's good
Again,
info. Yeah,
offensive
that's
line
good.
guy in the summer. I understand it. Like that's always the caveat, but there are guys that are getting better in the program.
So the one question I have, and I think I'm cool with this, but backup quarterback, I mean, I'm assuming it's J.J. Cole, although I've heard that Moberly's really good, and if you've watched anything at the spring game, like Moberly's like legit. And I've been a Moberly fan since I first laid eyes on him at Southeast Polk. I thought that kid was
I'd say you're accurate.
special.
Yep.
Not saying he's better than Cole right now. I have no idea, but I just really like Moberly because he's a little more mobile, whatever. I mean, you've what I would hate to see is, if Rocco gets hurt and you've got all these loaded position players around you, your line's better. Where do you is Cole like the given backup right now? Because I mean, people do forget, and it wasn't a game. JJ took Rocco right to the limit last year. How do we feel about that? If God forbid that were to be the case?
Yeah, I think it would be JJ, but I would say Connor showed up in January and they won't be shy if he has to play. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
He is definitely, you can tell. I mean, you've been around it long enough. When a guy shows up and they're a miss, everybody knows.
Yeah.
When they're a hit, when they get it, when you can see it, everybody knows that too.
Usually when they start telling us within a couple of weeks of being on campus that this guy's a stud, that doesn't miss very often.
It's almost 100%. And so
Tyreek Milton was the biggest miss I've ever seen when it comes to that.
And yet look at his sophomore year, he still had a really good year.
Just saying, like, I thought Tyreek Milton was going to be Randy Moss when I was first hearing about him on these first, but they don't. This staff, like, my whole joke that coaches lie, they're really good about this. Like when Matt Campbell told me that Joel Laney would be an all Big 12 linebacker, and I laughed at him. Like Matt generally doesn't blow people up and then they don't perform.
Correct. So I'd say, who's the next folks to look out for that are kind of under the radar that will show up? Okay, I'm putting Travis and Eli Green just based on what I know as people who haven't really heard about him. I'm going to throw Cooper Ebel in there at a linebacker spot.
Oh, yeah, that's the guy that they really love right now.
I think you guys...
Sadowski was that last year.
Yeah, but I think Ebel's a little bit different position. I'd say the ceiling's a little bit even higher for Ebel. Again, Sadowski's going to play and he's going to be good.
Yeah.
And then Benny Nagoye is there. He really is.
Dude, I love him. You just look at him. He's just a guy.
And that's where I think
Jontez Williams would be my
and Jontez
stock on that kid right now.
Absolutely. Jontez, and then some of the safeties that played a little bit last year. They're going to play more. I mean, I think this team. I know it's summer and the hype gets crazy in the summer, but this just feels a little bit different to me than even that. And maybe it's just the timeline, because obviously that 2021 team entering at your top 10, you had all these guys. You just won a Fiesta Bowl. And I think also, I would say Iowa State was a little bit more closed off at that point, just trying to keep it all, going forward. Where this time, I think they're more of the opinion of you guys don't realize how good we are.
Yeah,
nobody realizes how good we are. You know what I'm saying?
I'm getting that vibe too.
3 years ago, it was, we know we're going to be good, but let's keep it on the rails because we don't have a whole lot of depth. And if it goes sideways, it could really go sideways here. To now, it's everyone up there is I think we're being undersold by everybody, which is great. We're good with that. But the Memphis game really took away the win from a lot of sales from the expectation standpoint.
It was such a stupid game too. I told people after that game, don't even worry about this, and y'all lost your damn minds. That game was. I'm still pissed about bowl games right now.
Yeah, and
how dumb they are.
Here's what I would say: Iowa State went from then, which was December, was at 28th, and it's the roster's only gotten better because you didn't realize you'd have some of these additions that you got, and the guys that needed to grow up really have. So let's not get carried away. This is an Iowa State team that will be borderline top 25. They probably won't be rated by anybody. This is not like the 8th ranked Cyclones from 2021. But just know that there is a confidence level up in that building right now that it's real. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Thank our friends at the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State, the great Dean Spalding, and all of our friends up there at the Ivy College of Business at Iowa State. You can get your MBA online. Check them out. Best way to do it is just Google Ivy College of Business at Iowa State. Give them a follow on all of their great social media platforms. They're a longtime supporter of what we do here on Williams and Blum. The kick times are out for the first 3 games. Not a lot of news here. I am making an exec decision. We're going to hold off on the basketball non-con stuff for Wednesday. Are you cool with that?
I'm great with that.
You're
nothing
cool
new.
With that.
Nothing real crazy there.
I'm starting to get juiced up about football.
I am too.
Lie. Did you hear by chance? Because I got a little flack for this, and I wholeheartedly think that I was correct. Did you listen to 2 guys on Iowa Everywhere on Thursday or Friday?
I did.
So I was talking about how, like, and anybody who knows me knows I want to keep the Cyhawk game. I've never been a proponent of getting rid of the game, but like I was saying, like in the new setup, like I think the teams are more incentivized than ever to not play the game, because Iowa's not. They're part of a different like league now. Like it's not the Big Ten from 20 years ago. Like it's just not. My whole point. If you're Iowa State, I think you can be 10-2 with a loss to Iowa, and let's say you lose to Kansas State and keeps you out of the Big 12 champion. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there.
Sure.
Like I think it's going to be hard for 2-3 loss Big 12 teams to get in the playoff.
It is
in this new setup.
It is.
And I had some Iowa State fans that were like, well, our schedule's still tougher than theirs next year. And I'm like, you may be right, but it doesn't matter because I think the deck's going to be so stacked against these other conferences that aren't the SEC and the Big 12. What do you think I was over my skis on that? Because
no,
I think I'm just being realistic.
I don't. I mean, I think this is the Cyhawk thing is super fascinating to me because it's like logically, if my goal is to make a playoff, it doesn't make sense to play the game. It doesn't. Because you want to go 11-1, or I guess it'd be 12-1 and win the Big 12. That's your best chance. Well, I guess if you win it anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Go 11-2 and lose the Big 12, and then maybe you get an at-large. However, there's the other side of it is like, well, why are we playing this game anyway? Why do we play college football? It's like because the goal is to entertain and have 100,000 people in the same area for Iowans. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a proponent of keeping it. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Like, but we have to keep interesting games.
Just you guys, you're right though. It is going to be, that is the next big struggle for the Big 12 and the ACC. And you saw Sankey go, he made me mad this week. He was like, oh, well, you tell him we don't play the best football? I was like, Greg Sankey, nobody said the SEC doesn't play the best football. Like, nobody's arguing that. I am arguing, should you get 6 teams compared to R1? I'm arguing that. Like, let's talk about that. Because everybody anymore, and this is America, everybody goes to the extreme of, oh, well, you're telling me we don't play good football? No, nobody said that.
No, nobody said that.
Nobody
Greg.
said that. Stop it. Calm down. What we are saying is that an 11-2 team in the Big 12 should get in over an 8-4 in the SEC. I think that's fair. Like if you don't think you should, then win the game. And I think that's where Iowa State's going to get penalized potentially.
That's my whole thing. I am not. This isn't who plays a tougher schedule conversation.
No, I'm not.
This is all about perception, and in that room, the committee is owned by the Big Ten and the SEC.
They are.
Everything. They own everything going forward.
And their TV networks have incentive to put those schools in there as well.
Yes.
And this is going to be the problem, guys. This is why we've been saying all along that the playoff needed more outside partners to get in there. Because are you telling me that if ESPN, who is very much, by the way, they can say they're not, ESPN is very much involved in all of this stuff for playoffs.
Yeah, you think the committee didn't have a conversation with them when they left Florida State out? I guarantee they did.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's where if they have an SEC school or a Big 12 school, and they're trying to decide, it's gonna be a hard road for that Big 12 school.
I hope they prove me wrong.
I do
I don't
too.
have any faith that
I
the
do
Big
not
12 is
either.
going to be getting multiple teams in very often. I don't
It's
see
gonna
it.
take us. It's gonna take a really unique case. Unfortunately, you're gonna have. It's gonna be like 4-4-1-1-1-1 for these conferences. It's
Yeah,
4 of the SEC, 4 of the Big Ten, and so if you're the Big 12, you want to expand the playoff. So that's and then I would say to this C-Dub, I know people are giving your mark a hard time about wanting to expand the NCAA tournament,
I get it from
but
his
there's
standpoint.
something to that.
I
Like
get it. It's all revenue.
it's the same argument why you want to expand the college football playoff. So here's what I'd say with the Iowa game, though. I think you keep it because honestly, if you want to make a playoff, you
It'll
better
help.
beat Iowa. You got to beat
Yeah,
Iowa in the same year anyway,
yeah,
right?
it'll help.
Yeah, it's going to help, and that's only going to help. And it's good. None of those other schools. This is the other thing I would say. None of those other Big Ten schools are going to want to play Iowa State either in this new era.
Correct.
You know, it's not like you're going to be able to schedule Michigan. You're just not going to be able to. So the fact that you still get a home and home, and this isn't disrespectful to the Big 12 or Iowa State, but it's going to be harder and harder if you're not in the SEC or the Big Ten to get home and homes with those two conferences. It doesn't mean it's a lesser conference. It just doesn't. It's just the economics. The Big Ten and the SEC are going to play like they are better than you, and
Follow the money.
they'll say as much. It's the same reason why Iowa State, won't play UNI and Drake in the Knapp Center or the McLeod Center. It's not exactly the same, but it's the same premise of Iowa, unless they have to, will not come to Ames in the future. They just won't. But because you have that existing relationship, there's a state law there, by the way. You want to keep that up as long as you can.
And there's a lot of sponsorship money involved too. So
That's the other part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sponsor, it's a lot of money that's involved. And so that's why I think we can be holier than thou. I'm like, oh, Iowa fans think they're better than us and whatever. But that game can only help Iowa State's reputation going forward. You want to hold on to that. Now, and if you make a playoff, the last thing I would want, and maybe it's a terrible way to look at it, is to think, oh, we made a playoff, but then having Uncle Hawkeyes on my belly saying, well, you didn't beat Iowa that year.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, well then we'll kick your ass too then, pal.
Yeah, no,
That's a
I'm
more
with
way
you.
that's a bet that will make a more fulfilling year to me.
I'm with you. Keep the game. Again, my greater point was just that I I do think that there is an underestimation I think Iowa State fans in general are underestimating how much Big 10 SEC dominant this thing's
Totally
going to
agree.
be going forward. I don't
And
think most of our fans get it right now.
I would say the Iowa administration will be more thoughtful to get rid of the game than the Iowa State administration would.
Totally agree.
Because once they go to that 9, and are they at 9 games finally? They're at 9 games, right?
Yeah, they're
Big
at
10?
9 games now. Yeah.
There's going to be a world where Beth Getz or whoever's the AD for Iowa is going to be like, do we really need to play this anymore?
Well, and like the money too. Again, follow the money. Like, is there ever going to be a scheduling alliance with the SEC or something?
There you go.
Again, these TV contracts, they want valuable games, and that's another way for those two leagues to keep everybody else out.
You got it.
And then they get to keep more of the money.
They keep the more money, and that you nailed it. Because now, instead of doing a 9 or 10 game conference schedule, you do 9 games in your conference. You do 1 game with the SEC, and you make more money for everybody, and you keep the other 2 conferences over here. It's a world that is very possible. So you hold on to that game as long as you can. You really do. And then I think to that point, C-Dub, and what the Iowa fans won't admit, but I will for them. That game got picked up on CBS, national television, in the afternoon, the primetime slot. That game is going to get monster numbers. I mean, it is pretty cool that Iowa and Iowa State are going to play in that old CBS
it's awesome.
SEC time slot. So you're going to get huge, huge ratings. And I'll also say, look at the first week of the Big 12, the games scheduled for TV. Iowa State, North Dakota got picked up on FS1. The majority of those games are on ESPN Plus. So again, what Iowa State fans can separate themselves in this new era is you care, you watch, you go to the games, and keep doing that. Keep watching. Don't boycott the game on CBS because it's on CBS or whatever. The more you can watch Iowa State games, the better.
Yeah, that would be a stupid thing to do to not
Now,
watch.
don't watch the
Are people
SEC
are
if
people
you're.
talking about that?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh,
I
okay.
can just
Yeah.
see the world where they're like, hey, well, this is CBS doesn't have a deal with the Big 12, don't watch type of thing. But anytime Iowa State's on, the best thing you can do, show up or watch the game.
Blum, thank you for everything this week. You and your wife are amazing. I love you. We will be back on Wednesday. We were gonna do men's and women's basketball. Women get UConn and the not. We'll do all that on Wednesday's
Yeah,
show.
we
We'll
got it.
cover all that on Wednesday and more. Signing off from the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Thanks to our friends at Mechdyne for sponsoring the show. As always, we'll be back Wednesday morning. I think we're gonna go at 9:00 on Wednesday morning. Hope y'all can tune in.